Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast.
And welcome back to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. Our numbers here are dwindling. It is just me and Mr. Chris over here. Chris, how are you tonight?
I'm doing really good. I had a really fun time sacrificing Richie to the fantasy football god. Anything to retain my championship in our dynasty league, I am willing to do. Please be careful, Joe. You are next.
Oh boy.
No. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm ready to talk about a very fun, interesting, perhaps volatile, volatile. There we are. Yeah. Topic of top tight ends in fantasy football.
Oh yeah, Matt's still down there with Tyreek Hill right now, and we have Richie with his girlfriend. So it is just us holding down the fort. We are going to
Probably
go
also with
over,
Tyreek Hill.
probably also with Tyreek
Yeah,
Hill.
Richie's also down there. They're both doing stuff. They're trying to raise him or something. I don't know.
So we're going to go over our tight end rankings today. Very fun concept, especially if you are a tight end premium league. We are not, but there's a lot of them out there, and I've been in one once, and it was a lot of fun. So you might care about these a little more if you are in one of those leagues. So we're
True.
going to kick it off right now, and our consensus tight end 12 with the rookie taken in the first round, Brock Bowers. Matt has him ranked, and Chris both have him ranked as their tight end 17. Richie comes up next, having him ranked as his tight end 14. And I'm the highest on Brock for this year. I have him as my tight end 10. So, Chris, why do you hate Brock Bowers?
Oh man. Before I go into that, I just want to stress that as you guys are probably also a little curious, as I was going into this, probably wondering how is it possible that he ended up as tight end 12 when all those numbers are there. Well, that's because the other numbers for some of the other tight ends here are in such a way, mathematically speaking, that he ended up at 12 because of some other random numbers we got going on here. So that's actually what happened here. We promise you, we're not pulling for rookies. That mathematically speaking, that's just what happened. With that out of the way, I do hate Brock. No. He's a rookie. He's with Michael Mayer. Mayer. One of the two, right? Yeah.
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 Yep. Man.
And I don't know if I'm like super sold on if he's going to be the guy or if there's going to be like maybe a split between the two of them at the tight end position. I'm not too sure. That worries me a little bit. I'd like to like if he was like there alone, there would be, I would at least have him at 12, right? There wouldn't be an issue. It's just because he might have to share some of the kind of spotlight with another tight end. That scares me a bit.
That makes sense. My reasoning for having him so high is that the Raiders did take him with a first round draft pick. And when a team invests a first round draft pick in a player, it usually means that they have a plan for that player in the scheme of things. If you look at the team, we got Mr. Minshew over there slinging the ball. I assume he's going to be the starter over Aiden O'Connell. And we still have Devontae Adams there, who will be the top target. But I think right behind him is going to be Brock Bowers. We've seen a lot of him in preseason. He was used in a lot of different ways in that preseason game. So that really excites me. It makes me think that they have a lot of plans drawn up for him. That's why they took that first round pick on him. And I think he's going to see a lot of targets this year. Especially if Devontae's drawing that double coverage, it's going to go to Brock Bowers. So that's why I have him ranked so high. I could also see your argument. It's rookie. We got to see how he's going to perform. But with the hype around him, how he did in college, the draft capital, and who's on the team, that's why I have him at my 10 slot. Do you have anything else to add on Brock Bowers?
No, I feel like you. I mean, I hate him. No, no, no. I mean, you brought up your points. I brought up mine. I mean, I think everything was valid. I'm not gonna, this isn't like blasphemous by any means, in my personal opinion. So yeah, no, I think we're good.
All right, moving along. Tight end 11 consensus is Tyler Conklin. Both me and Richie have him ranked as our tight end 12. We have then Matt ranked him as his tight end 11, and then Chris has him as his tight end 10. Pretty close, just a couple number difference there. Chris, you want to explain why you have him at 10 over some of these
Yeah.
other guys?
I'll be honest. Between my the 12th, 10th, the 11th. Sorry, Jeez, wow. The 10th, 11th, and 12th guys on this list. I gotta be honest, I can interchange them anyway. There truthfully isn't too much to like move around with here. With Conklin specifically, however, there is a very big contingent that needs to happen. Aaron Rodgers needs to stay healthy and he needs to survive more than 4 snaps. As long as that happens, I'm pretty confident he'll do just fine. I think that's a big reason why he finished his, I believe, tight end 20 last season. I don't anticipate a repeat of that. I anticipate finishing around this margin of top 12 to top 10 sort of caliber. But yeah, I mean, he's solid. He is very, very solid. Pretty much what you're looking for in a tight end, in a sense, for a redraft. If, tight at this point, like, you're going tight end 11 or whatever, that's probably, I'm just guesstimating in my 6th, 7th, 8th round, something like that. That's fine. Like, you're totally good there doing that. That those numbers could be slightly off, but the idea remains the same, right? I actually have him going at 216 overall on here, so it's actually way farther down than that. So I'll take that. On any day of the week.
Yeah, I agree with him. I really like Tyler Conklin. I think he kind of fills that similar role with Brock Bowers, where you have Garrett Wilson, who's the clear cut one there, and then you could argue Conklin is the two, but they do have Mike Williams there now. If you can stay healthy, I do think Mike Williams might take that 2 slot from him, but I do think Tyler Conklin will be heavily involved in that Jets offense, so I am excited for that. Um, that's why I do have him in my top 12 still, is because I think he's a good value steal and later in the draft, like you mentioned, that he's going to get those targets. He might not be the number one tight end, but he has the potential to be in those top 5, depending on
Nice.
depending if Roger stays healthy and how many targets he gets. Moving along to our tight end 10 is Evan Engram. I have him at tight end 13. Chris has him at tight end 12. Richie has him at tight end 10. And then Matt has him at tight end 9. Um, Matt, why don't you tell us why you love but you're too busy down in Florida. So I'll
Oh,
tell you why I have him so low. We're not
why do you hate him?
I don't even think it's that low.
Why do you hate him so much?
He's just outside my top 12 by 1. And the reasoning behind that is, look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you look at them, their 2024 roster, you have Christian Kirk, you have Gabe Davis, and you have Brian Thomason Jr. I think all 3 of those players are better than Evan Engram, in my opinion. And I think that they'll see more targets than Evan Engram. And that's why it pushes him a little bit further down my list. You also have the catching ability of Travis Etienne, who we talked about, who we're all very high on. We know he's a great player. That's the only reason why I have Evan Engram down this list a little bit. I still think that this is going to be a good season for Trevor. Trevor Lawrence, if that wasn't clear. I think that Evan Engram will do fine, and he is in my top 15 tight ends. Top 12, though, no, just because he's buried in that depth chart. Chris, what do you think about Evan Engram? You have him 1 spot higher than I
Yeah,
do at 12.
I'm not too far off of I guess what you're thinking. I guess my thought process is that I think he'll just squeak in a little bit better than what you're probably thinking, just to get to that top 12 overall. I think he's actually fantastic. I like you had just said that you believe the 3 wide receivers are better than Evan Ingram. I would say I don't really know how to where to rank Brian Thomas Jr.
That
In terms of.
preseason catch is pretty nice.
That is true, but I also have regular season production from Evan Ingram. Um,
That's
I
true.
know how Gabe Davis does it. I know exactly what he's gonna do. He's gonna catch a random deep ball for 40 yards and run another 30 and score a touchdown and get someone 15 fantasy points off rip for no reason, off of like 3 catches. Like I know what Christian Kirk can do. I know he's just fine. I know he's there. I know he's the guy. Um, I think Evan Ingram slots in perhaps around the Gabe Davis marker. He will definitely not overtake the 1. I don't know where they're gonna slot in Brian Thomason Jr. Um, but I have a feeling that he'll float between the 2nd or 3rd option on that team, which is why I think that he'll end up at top 12. He'll probably won't be as good as he was last season because they definitely don't need him to be the guy sometimes, but um, you never know. I have a feeling he'll at least retain that much value of top 12.
Yeah, and I could see that too, and that's kind of why we have him right in that middle slot, not top, not bottom, but
Yeah.
he's a good player, just kind of buried in that depth chart. Moving on along, we have our tight end number 9, Mr. George Kittle. Richie has him the lowest at his tight end 9, followed by me and Matt both have him as our tight end 8, and then Chris has him at his tight end 5. Um, the reason, same argument, exact same argument, is the depth chart. It looks this could change if Ayuk leaves. If Ayuk leaves, I would bump him up higher. But if Ayuk stays, you're looking at Debo, Ayuk, and now Ricky Pearsall, who's looked really good. They spent the first rounder on him. That's 3 really good wide receivers. Not saying that George Kittle is not good. He is one of the elite tight ends in the league, but that's a lot of competition for target share. Granted, George Kittle did finish as the tight end number 2 last year in standard scoring, so that gives me a little more boost to his confidence. That's why I still have him so high, even though all those depth chart pieces are there. Really, I think if Ayuk wasn't there, if Ayuk did leave to go to Pittsburgh, like they've been talking about, I might move him up to like tight end 4, 4 or 3 even. But with Ayuk still there, I'm gonna keep him right where I have him at 8. I'd be happy with getting him. You could probably get him a little later in drafts, but he's still an elite tight end. Chris, you're the highest out of him with tight end 5. So why don't you explain why you have him so high here?
Yeah. So I'm gonna kind of go into it a little bit. This is probably so when I started fantasy football, this was actually the first tight end I drafted. This is not a joke. This happened. He got injured. That happened for a couple of games, and I can't remember the exact circumstances, right? And this kind of set me on my philosophy of how I should treat tight ends as more of a matchup sort of thing. Unless if you have like the before like two, you had Kelce and Andrews. You could argue at some point Kittle was in there, right? But for recent memory, it's been the Kelce Andrews show. You can now maybe include Laporta in there. A discussion for a different time. We're talking about the past at the current moment. Um, Kittle kind of set me on this philosophy of like, if I don't have one of those guys, I should probably just like focus on the matchup. And that's pretty much exactly what I did. And I noticed that, when the defenses aren't the best, or mind you, when the defenses are literally, so if the defenses are good, they usually doesn't do the best at times. When the defenses are pretty bad, he'll have a chance of doing fine. I find that when the defenses are like the best, that's when he gets like the most target over the years. Is what I'm trying to say here. Not last year, in a sense, over the years. Um, and I mean, I'm looking at his stats from last year. In our league, he finishes tight end 5. And like so, I basically have him not moving at all. And to be quite honest with you, there isn't too much deviation here. I mean, there's a couple of outliers, but Baltimore defense last year, we would argue, was pretty good. Week 16, 16.10 fantasy points. Uh, Cincinnati's defense wasn't the best, wasn't the greatest. 19.4, a bit of an outlier from what I had said. Week 3, New York Giants defense, as much as we love to hate on the offense, the defense is not the issue. 12.5 fantasy points. Uh, I like how they use him. I understand knowing, like, putting him this high, he's a very boom or bust guy. I know I'm going to have off weeks with him, but I also know he's going to just win me random weeks for no reason at
Oh
all.
yeah, he has some
Uh,
big boom weeks. I'll
yeah.
share this with everyone that is watching on YouTube. This was a meme. I don't know if you can see it. The ankle that beat Matt High twice. This was a It was I forget what season it was, but he had one of those boom weeks towards the finals and beat Matt in 2 separate leagues. And we made this meme. And Matt, if you're watching this, I know you love George Kittle.
Yeah, no, he like it's insane. He is the pure definition of boom bust.
Oh, a
He
hundred
is.
percent,
Like
hundred
you
percent.
this is the high octane volatile pick that you're gonna get, and you're probably gonna need a backup tight end because you know for a fact that if an injury happens, or you're just like, I'm not really sure about this matchup or whatever, or you're gonna throw someone else in there, but like you're going against an insanely difficult defense. I'm slotting in George Kittle because they're going to utilize every weapon possible, including him. 9 times out of 10, most defenses aren't going to prepare. They can't prepare for every option. That's insane. So
Yeah.
things will slip through the cracks, especially when you have all of the options possible. So that's my reasoning of tight end 5. I have a feeling he'll just have enough boom weeks that it will carry his stat total.
Yeah, I mean, and his stats from 2023 speak volumes, like you said. Standard, he was tight end 2, half point PPR, tight end 5, so it's pretty good. Moving along our list, we are moving up to the tight end 8. We have David Njoku. If Warren is listening, he is a Browns fan, and Njoku is one of his favorite players. Matt has him at his tight end 10. Chris, you then have him as your tight end 9. Richie has him as his tight end 8, and I have him as tight end 7. Chris, you want to explain why you have him at tight end 9 before I say why I
Yeah,
have him higher?
so he finished our league at tight end 6. Fantastic. I don't have him going down too much farther than that. They have the addition of Jerry Judy. Jerry Judy. If I could speak. Um, that's probably actually it. That's probably the reason. There's another mouth to feed, and Jerry Judy definitely does command targets from Njoku. Uh, there is nothing on him in the slightest. I think he's fantastic. There's also the age slightly worries me. 7 years of experience, going on 8 now this upcoming season, slightly worries me. He's 28. In terms of the actual tight end position, not really, but in terms of a passing sort of guy for your fantasy relevance, there's a little worry there. I don't, with the addition, but mostly with the addition of Jerry Judy, I feel as if there'll be some regression there. Not too much, just a little bit.
Okay, that's fair enough. I, on the other hand, think that Judy is not that good of a player, and I think that I just think that I think that David Njoku is still that target number 2 on that team, right behind Amari Cooper. I think it goes to Cooper, Njoku, and then Jerry Judy after that, and then Elijah Moore following up on the rear. I
Tell me
think
how you
this
really
is.
feel.
I I think Deshaun Watson needs to show up this year, and if not, his career in the NFL might be in jeopardy. He really needs to come up and play some good football. I think he's going to be throwing the ball a lot. I think that Njoku will see a lot of targets being that number 2 target. I mean, if you look at the stats last year, as you mentioned, he finished the tight end 6 and half point PPR with averaging 10 points per game for a tight end. You love to see it, especially in a tight end premium league. That'd be great. So that's why I have him a little higher on my list. He finished 6th last year. I have him as my tight end 7. I don't think it's too much changed outside of just Judy coming in, who I don't think will be that big of an impact on his production. So that's why I have him right around that range still. But moving on from there, we go on to our tight end number 7, which is Jake Ferguson. I have him as tight end 9. We have Matt and Chris both on the same wavelength. They have him at tight end 7. And then Richie has him as his tight end 5. Chris, do you want to explain why you're a little higher on Mr. Ferguson?
Yeah. So last year he finished his tight end 8. Now of course the Cowboys, we all love to meme on them. They have one style and they get figured out. They're frauds and they go away. They're like we them boys and then they're not them boys really fast. It happens. But moving into this year, I feel like he's definitely solidified his place on this roster here. Personally, I'm looking at some of these stats this season. I honestly cannot believe some of them. I mean, 29% rostered for Jake Ferguson. I mean, like that's crazy to me. But beyond that fact, I mean, you have CD Lamb, maybe. Who knows with all the contract stuff going on? Hopefully they get resolved soon.
It's not a priority. That's what Jerry Jones said.
Clearly, geez, oh wow. But you have him, and then Jake Ferguson is definitely number 2. I know Brandon Cooks is there, but we're gonna be honest, he's definitely the number 2. And with how much that offense will be passing, because everyone knows Zeke is not carrying the game. Um, I have a feeling that he'll probably improve that ranking from 8 to 7. He'll solidify there. I have a feeling that CeeDee Lamb is going to consume most of those targets, as he's just that good. But I have a feeling Jake Ferguson will definitely see a little bit more of an increase of workload from last year.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I mean, I have him at tight end 9, so he's still in my top 10. And I'm just worried about the Cowboys offense as a whole. And I think that's my main
That's
reason why I
fair.
have him just a little lower,
That's so
especially
fair.
with if CD's not there. I really worry about the Cowboys
There's
offense.
like almost no way he's not there.
That's
There's
what I'm
almost no
thinking.
way.
But
But
if
the
he's not
Cowboys
there,
do some really weird stuff sometimes. So Jerry Jones, I there are worries I have because of certain management uh decisions of the past.
yeah, that's really my main concern is just the Cowboys offense as a whole. Will Dak repeat he did pretty well last season. Is that he going to have another good season like he did last year, or is it going to be kind of a regression year? You never know what you're going to get with the Cowboys. It's either we them boys or they lose to so much that it's like embarrassing. And then you have that meme on Facebook with all the quarterbacks' heads coming out saying, "Are you still them boys?" I don't know if you've ever seen those, but
I I also love the one where it's like the chart of the circle
oh
and it's
yeah,
like of the season and it's like you are here and it's and the season start and blah blah blah. It's like,
yep.
oh, fantastic! What a great
So
meme.
that's the only reason why I have him a little. I still think he's a great tight end, and that's why I have him in my top 10, just a little lower. Moving on to
Can
a.
I want to do this one. I want to introduce this one
Oh,
because I
okay.
know this means a lot. Yeah, I know. I want to give you the floor. Our tight end number 6. I'm not gonna say it yet. We got Matt has him at tight end ranked 6. We got Richie at 7. I'm at 8. But Joe has him at 5. We got the man, the myth, the legend, Kyle Pitts. Uh, why don't? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Show off that helmet.
Uh,
Joe, why don't you go ahead and describe to us why this is finally Kyle Pitts' years? Why finally the believers will be rewarded. Those who have not sold will finally see redemption in the eyes of the fantasy football gods without Arthur Smith, with Kirk Cousins. Why? Tell me.
this if it's going to be Kyle Pitts' year, it's this year. With Kirk Cousins over there, we all know he's a fantastic passer of the ball, better than Atlanta's had for a number of years now.
You don't like Desmond Ritter?
No, I don't. So it's this is the time. This is the time for Drake London and Kyle Pitts to become fantasy relevant, and I think it will happen. I think that Kirk Cousins is going to be slinging that ball. You also have the run pressure with Bijan and Algier there. I think the Falcons' offense on paper should be dangerous, and that excites me for Kyle Pitts and Drake London's production. I know we're not talking about Drake London, but mainly Kyle Pitts. I think he's going to see a lot of targets from Kirk, and that's why I have him ranked so high. We know the talent's there. It's just can he show up and do what everyone drafted him to do? Most likely in your first round of your rookie drafts, and probably pretty early on with all the hype around him in even redrafts. So that's why I have him so high. The addition of Kirk Cousins has me excited, and I think he should finish a top 10, if not top 5 tight end finish this year.
Okay.
What do you want
Yeah.
to bring me down to earth, Joe?
No.
So
I mean, I'm not. I mean, listen. I'm at 8. You're at 5. That's really only 3 positions off. And I feel like when talking about tight ends, honestly, it's so thin of a line sometimes. It truthfully is. There is still a drop off between the best and then kind of like the middling guys and then the rest. We're in the middling guys right now. We have been probably since like around tight end 12. To be quite honest with you, the rest down below get only objectively worse. But regarding Kyle Pitts specifically, so last year he finished as a tight end 14. Obviously not the greatest, not the worst, admittedly. I do have to agree. If there was any year for this to happen, now is the time. It's got to be now. It's got. I mean, you've been so loyal, so faithful.
so
Now is the
patient.
time for you to be rewarded for your faith. No, but in all seriousness, I don't hate it. I don't disagree with you into a sense. I'm more cautious on the Kyle Pitts train because of all of the mouths to feed, all of the options, the Bijan, the Tyler Algier, the Drake London, the whole team there. It's we've been hearing about how good they are. We might actually get to see how good they are. And in reality, I think that's also the worst part. We've only heard how good they are, besides Bijan, we don't truthfully know how the actual ceiling. That's what worries me a little bit. So I'm going to temper my expectations. He's currently 187th overall on the draft board there. So could pick him up. That's pretty late. That's a pretty late pickup in a redraft league. But yeah, I don't blame you for thinking that way, especially as a Pitts owner.
It's got to be 1 year. I
Yeah,
got to keep telling myself that to go to sleep
I'm
at night.
grounding my expectations just slightly.
Moving on, we are getting to the top 5 tight ends, which I think we're going to go through all these because some of these are pretty pretty different from the.
Yeah.
Usually, we have a consensus of the top 3, and we just have different
Not
numbers.
this one
but
though.
Not
This one's very. Here, I'm actually going to prepare the statement. By the
Yeah,
way, go ahead. Yeah,
please
yeah.
do. Our tight
Yeah.
end number 5 is Trey McBride. Richie, myself, and Chris have him ranked as our tight end 6, and you have Matt High has him as his tight end 1. Can you
It's
please
true.
read the written explanation
Of course.
from Matt High?
So
He was so passionate about this ranking that he wrote us a text message to please read on the podcast. You are muted.
I'm muted. Am I
Oh,
back now?
now I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that. So as Joe said, there was a written statement, knowing that you probably disagree with this. So he has stated, I'm gonna read the whole thing because I think it's funny. Do me a favor, and when you talk about Trey McBride, make sure you mention. And here's the statement. Even though a new wide receiver one who should, even though there is a new wide receiver one who should dominate targets, he can still be the number 2 option on the team. And that George Kittle used to be drafted as the first or second tight end, as the second or third option on his team, where Trey McBride is going between the I believe the 4th and 6th rounds in the drafts is I think what he's trying to say here. That's one of the reasons I have him as my 1, because the value of targets he will get from Kyler and the Cardinals. So that is the statement from Matt High. I'm gonna let you do your thing here, Joe. Go ahead.
Yeah.
If you want to rebuttal it, if you want to talk about your ranking or both, go for it.
I don't disagree with him. I don't think Trey McBride is a bad tight end. If you look at, he finished last year as the tight end number 9 in half point PPR. So I don't know how you get from 9 to number 1 with a new target being brought into the team that's elite. That's news to me, Matt. So I don't know what you're thinking there.
Well,
But
in fairness, to Kyler factor, I mean he's gonna be there the whole time now.
yeah.
In fairness, yeah. So keep going now. Keep going.
But tight end number 9 to 1 it's a big jump. So I actually, we all have him at 6. We're all kind of in consensus that he's still going to have a good season. He's probably going to be that arguably that number 2 target behind Marvin Harrison Jr. You still do have Michael Wilson there, who had a really good season last year as a rookie. So I'm excited to see what I kind of feel Michael Wilson might fight him for that number 2 target spot, but we'll have to see when the season starts. But I don't disagree with Matt, and I do think that Trey McBride is a great tight end to target in drafts this year. I just don't have him as my tight end 1, just because some of these other guys have proven that they are tight end 1s and have done it before. And I think me and you are both in agreement with as looking at the rankings that we have other guys as our tight end 1s that I could agree with more than Trey McBride. So that's where I'll just leave it there. Do you have anything else to?
Yeah, I'm gonna add one more thing. Truthfully, the only other factor here that needs to be touched upon, because we're talking about other people who can take targets away and compete. Well, I don't think this person's going to compete. I'm almost positive Trey Benson is an infinitely better pass catching running back than James Conner. I'd be willing to bet a lot of money on this, and he is probably. I mean, I've seen some preseason, stuff from him, and I've got to say, I'm pretty sure a very bit a while ago I was pretty down on him, and I personally would like to retract that. I'm very impressed by what I've seen, and I feel like he is also going to take some stuff from Trey McBride away. I think they're actually becoming a good, well-rounded team, and that only hurts Trey McBride in terms of fantasy statistics. So I don't necessarily hate him going at number 1. I wouldn't necessarily put him there. I get why he wants that to happen, but because of everything else going on, I just feel like the target diversity will be a lot more potent than what he's thinking. Besides the point.
I could see that for sure. All right. Well, that's our tight end 5. Let's move on to our tight end consensus number 4, which is Dalton Kincaid. Matt has him as his tight end 5. Richie and you both have him as 4, and I have him at 3. The reasoning I have him at 3 is because we look at his rookie season last year. While he was also kind of splitting touches with Dalton Knox, um, or Dawson Knox, he still finished as the tight end 12 in half point PPR leagues. That's pretty impressive for a rookie tight end that was kind of splitting the job with someone else. I think this year's going to be a huge step up. Granted, I know they did draft another wide receiver that now with the addition of Keon Coleman there, but I still think that he is a very big part of that Bills offense. I do think he's going to see a lot of targets, which equals fantasy points. That's why I have him in my top 5. He's one of the more promising prospects just on the offense he's on, with the quarterback he's playing with, and his skill set. So that's why I have him so high. Chris, do you want to say you're not too much? You're just one spot under me.
Yeah,
I think
that's
you
pretty.
kind
I'm
of,
pretty much agreeable here.
yeah,
I mean, he's definitely solidified himself in the defense. The wide receivers aren't exactly. You got one rookie and then one guy who we kind of know what we're getting to a certain extent. I anticipate Josh Allen to utilize Dalton Kincaid a lot. So
yeah.
yeah, nothing. There's nothing too much more to say about this.
All right, moving along to our tight end 3 is Sam Laporta. Matt has him as his tight end 4. Chris, you have him at tight end 3, and then Richie and I have him as tight end 2. Chris, do you want to explain why you have him in your top 3?
You can say explain why you hate him. I understand. I get it. I totally get it. No, kidding. But yeah, no. I okay. So it's really close with me between who I have it to, and Sam Laporta. Personally, um, but I decided to give the other guy the edge because of not only more of a solidified sort of pedigree. He's been in the league longer. Laporta, obviously, sophomore season, had a fantastic breakout season. Uh, the worry I have here with him specifically is slight regression with more pieces coming into play now. Obviously, we're not entirely sure what's going on with the Jahmyr Gibbs situation, which does kind of play into Sam Laporta's usage. Hamstring issue. There's a lot of rumors going to ACL. Not really too sure. That's all just rumors so far. Um, but I just feel like as that offense evolves more, I don't feel as if he's going to like necessarily. I'm pretty sure. Hold on, let me check where Laporta finished in our league. I don't think I have
He
him.
finished as the tight end 1 last
He
year
did. Yeah.
for half point.
So my guess is what's going to happen here is I don't know if he's going to regress an insane amount um in terms of like where he's catching, the yards per catch, stuff like that. I actually feel like the others that might be there might just get better. Maybe a slight regression, and then we'll go from there. But I do believe that these top 3, there is some paper thin margins that we're cutting through here, to a certain extent. But some lines have to be drawn, and this is where I draw mine. Because in the wake of Sam Laporta being 3, Amon-Ra St. Brown will lay ruin upon all those who stand in his way. So that's where I'm going to go with this.
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, if you look at his finish, he averaged 11.5 points per game in half point PPR, which is tied for the most with someone else who is on our list that we'll talk about. He had a great, and that was a rookie season. If you
Mhm.
look at the Lions, they still have Amon-Ra St. Brown there, who is an elite wide receiver. Jameson Williams, he's pretty good. He showed us glimpse, and then Khalif Raymond, sure. That's why
Yeah, whatever.
I still think he's that number 2 target right behind Amon Ra.
100%.
Jared Goff has shown he's got what it takes. He brought life back to Detroit, and I think this is just going to be another great season for Mr. Sam Laporta. Moving along to our tight end 2 is Travis Kelce. You and I both have him as our tight end 1, and Richie and Matt both have him as their tight end 3. Why? They aren't here to explain. So we're going to just talk about why he's our tight end 1. And if you don't mind, I'm gonna start off right here.
No, okay, hold on.
All right, all right.
Let me explain why they think it's probably going to be the tight end 3. Let me try to supplement it in
Is
here.
it
Okay,
Taylor
we got
Swift?
Taylor Swift is ruining football. No. My guess is a combination of a couple of things. He got age. Last year obviously was not his best season. It was actually one of his worst seasons. I forgot what year it was, but it was like I think 5 or 6 years back or something like that. Was like snapped the streak of him having worse seasons since then. I don't know the exact number, but that like scary sign of regression, the addition of Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown. Um, I think that would be why they rank them lower, and they have Matt does not have him higher. Sam Laporta is obviously at 4. Obviously that's Trey McBride and the guy we're going to talk about next. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not necessarily super. I don't disagree in a sense. I get why you'd be hesitant. However, Joe, if you would like to explain why you have him at number 1, we can go from there.
I have him at number 1 because he is the same player playing on with the best quarterback in the league, which is Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, the best duo that we've seen in a long time. When Patrick's scrambling, he's looking for no other than Mr. Travis Kelce. He finished with as the tight end 3 in half point PPR, but he also finished with an average of 11.5 points per game for half point PPR, which is tied with the number 1, Sam Laporta. That's pretty impressive. And I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be taking Travis Kelce. I'd be a little hesitant on him being the number 1 overall. He has those hit or miss games. I drafted him in our first round of our league last year, and it was like riding a roller coaster. It was like, yeah, oh, yeah, oh. So it's those hit or miss times, but I can't say that there's a tight end I'd rather have over Travis Kelce starting going into the season, and that's why he's my number 1.
I would like to add that for like a decent part of that season, if many will remember, he was most definitely battling injury for a good like 7 to 8 weeks, constant questionable at practice. Only to play that week and still put up decent numbers. Yeah, sure, sometimes he's not putting up anything great. Sometimes he might exit the game early. However, for the most part, like even when he was like questionable, he goes in and does his stuff. Imagine what he's gonna be like when he's healthy, right? There's a good chance the lingering injury might be the reason as to why he did not get nearly as much targets as he could have. This could be a Cooper Cup situation. He's healthy now. He's back. We don't know. We'll find out. I'm willing to take that risk. I'm never going to draft him because I don't draft tight ends in redraft league. But I have him in our dynasty league, and I'm definitely not trading him because why would I want to trade who I believe is going to be the guy of tight ends? So yeah, there we go there.
Yeah, I took him last year in the first round because I had the last pick, so I went Travis Kelce and then immediately after grabbed a wide receiver, and I also got Patrick Mahomes later in the draft somehow. I got him in the 3rd, I think.
Mhm.
So that was exciting. I had the stack, but I'm also not a fan of drafting tight ends. I don't think any of us on the podcast recommend a tight end in the first round of a redraft league. But if you are able to get him in the 2nd round, I would take a shot on him. But moving on to our tight end consensus number 1. This one surprised me that he made it to our number 1 spot. It is Mark Andrews from the Baltimore Ravens. I have him as my tight end 4. Chris and Matt both have him as their tight end 2, and Richie has him as his tight end number 1. So Richie brought him right up there. Chris, do you want to explain why you have him as your number 2?
Yeah. So the injury bug kind of hit Andrews last year. And I'm looking him up now. So bear with me here. So before I say this, I want to make sure I'm accurate here. Uh, Before I say this, please hold, please hold, please hold, please hold. Yeah, okay. This is kind of what I thought. Yeah, he's proven to be very resilient over the years. Last year was kind of the first time where there was the significant like multi-game, like week. So it looks like he got injured week 11, and he was out for the rest of the year. Right, that was the first time that happened. He's never been hit that hard with the injury bug. He's usually very resilient. Lamar Jackson is obviously on top of his game, as many people know. I have him as my QB1, and I believe right behind Zay Flowers, if not perhaps in front of him, Mark Andrews is there as the 1 or 2 slot in terms of a receiving target. While I understand there is the Derrick Henry factor of the rushing, I understand why Lamar Jackson also is the rushing guy. That offense is so versatile, and it will do anything it can to get whatever yards it can. It is just so disgusting what they can do sometimes. Even when they had Isaiah Likely, they were trying to utilize him just like Mark Andrews was. So, truthfully, I think he'll end up being number 2. I think his downfall will just be that he is kind of going to sit behind like the true haymakers of Derrick Henry getting in the rushing touchdowns, and I think Zay Flowers is going to impress us this year and kind of actually get on the map even more so than he already is. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I agree with you. And he was having a great season before he got hurt. He averaged 11.3 fantasy points per game last season. So if he stayed healthy, I think he would have been in that top 5 to end it. So the only reason I have him a little lower than some of these other guys is I just after the season Sam Laporta had, the season Travis Kelce had, that's why they're my top 1 and 2. And my number 3 is Dalton Kincaid, just because of the season he had as a rookie. I think he's going to take another step up. I could see making an argument over Mark Andrews over Dalton Kincaid, and I could agree with that. They're kind of on a similar um, value level for me, if I'd say it that way. So I don't hate him being our number 1. I'm a huge Mark Andrews fan. I love Lamar. I think he's a great quarterback, and we'll just have to see how he shows up for Baltimore. And I think he's going to do pretty well. I mean, Baltimore didn't really add too much change in that wide receiver game, but they did get Derrick Henry, which I think they might try to run. If he stays healthy, I think they're going to be running the ball, overthrowing it as much as possible. So that's why I have him a little bit lower down my list than someone like Richie, who has him at 1, is just because I think they are going to be that run first team with Derrick Henry there. That's my only reasoning having him a little lower. But that's going to conclude our tight end rankings. Just to go back through it real quick. Starting from 1, we have Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, Sam Laporta, Dalton Kincaid, Trey McBride, Kyle Pitts, Jake Ferguson, David Njoku, George Kittle, Evan Engram, Tyler Conklin, and following it up at tight end 12, Brock Bowers. Chris, is there any notable mentions you want to talk about before we end it here on tight ends for the today?
Yeah. I have one tight end. Obviously, didn't make it. I have my number 11. My guy Dallas Goddard. Who he ended up as our tight end 14. I don't necessarily think I have him tight end 11. He's definitely a bit more of a kind of a variance sort of guy here. He definitely not in the best situation in terms of like stability. If you're looking for a stable tight end, there's a lot of things that can happen on that team. So much stuff between Saquon being able to catch the ball, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts, and then the Dallas Goddard's just there. But I have a feeling that much like some of these other guys who are on good offenses, he'll find a way to slip into this top 12 personally. So that's where I'm going to stand there. Joe, what about you?
Yeah, the only guy that I had in my top 12 that we didn't talk about is TJ Hawkinson. Um, I think the main reason why people have him lower is because of that lingering injury. You might not have him to start the season right away. He might be a little bit later of a tight end. But I would be excited to draft him later in the season. Um, or get him later in the draft because he's going to be a late season play. It's almost like when Kamara, when he was suspended in the beginning of the season, you can get him later in drafts for good value. And if you hold on to him, he will make up for it later in the season. I think he has potential to be a top 5 tight end. He is a safety blanket for the tight ends there in Minnesota. I don't know how long we'll be without JJ McCarthy with that injury. So while Sam Darnold is in there, I think if he's going to be getting rushed, I think that Hawkinson will be that safety blanket. That's why I have him as my tight end 12. because I'd be happy with getting him later in the draft as a good value pick. Obviously, you'd probably want another tight end to start the season, but otherwise, very happy with getting him later in that draft. But that is going to do it for us here for the tight end rankings. Stay tuned. We're going to be finishing it up with our wide receiver rankings on our next episode. Make sure you check us out on anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Music. We are on YouTube. We are on Twitter. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Please leave a comment. Subscribe if you want to get more videos and future stuff from us. Any questions or concerns on your teams, leave us a tweet or send us a message. We will talk about it on the show. We'll answer it, and we'll do the best to help your fantasy team get ready for the upcoming 2024 season. And with that, we'll see you on the next episode.
See you around.
Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. Follow us on Twitter at TheHeroesFF.